am Line, and this is 321 Denmark. And today we have a guest, Mark Taliano. You are a research associate of the Center for Research and Globalization, and you are the author of the book Voices of Syria.
Yes.
You have a website where you publish a lot of articles, and
yes.
In your articles you often claim that the new Syrian government is installed by Western interests. And
yes.
What is your
Okay, so the West has been supporting Al-Qaeda for decades. Okay, the war on terror is a big lie. Okay, the West supports the terrorists. They are proxies to destroy prey countries. That's the unvarnished truth, okay? But that is backed up by Western sources. I could read you the sources. I have them here if you're interested. But so the West has been supporting Al-Qaeda and ISIS all along in Syria. That is the opposition, okay? And now the opposition is posing as a government. It's an obscenity, really. It's an obscenity. They weren't elected. It's a Al-Qaeda junta, okay? But this is what empire wants, because it seeks to destroy countries to advance the interests of certain segments of their population, certainly not the whole population. If Syria is destroyed, as it is, if it's balkanized, as it is, then it's easy for transnational capital and transnational corporations to come in and further to plunder. And it's also, now that it hardly has a standing army, you'll notice Al-Qaeda is not defending against the Zionists. Why? Because they're on the same side. They have been all along, okay? So they do not have an army to defend against empire. So now empire can do basically as it pleases there. And one of the next thing that it seeks to do, apart from Israeli expansion, which is happening, as well as Israeli genocide of Palestinians, which is happening, the destruction of Syria makes that genocide easier. The destruction of Syria weakens the resistance, okay? There's no resistance in Syria, well, very little resistance now. And horror upon horrors, this Al-Qaeda regime and the Al-Qaeda gangs and so on are committing just a catastrophic genocide right now against Alawites and minorities, including Christians, including some Sunnis. Now, when I was in Syria, it was deeply moving because the government was pluralistic. It accepted and in fact embraced different religious minorities, including Christians. I went to Malula, which was a Christian, largely Christian area, and the Shrine of Takla. And there, the empire's proxies destroyed for the sake of destroying everything there. But it was defended by the Syrian army and by Hezbollah.
But okay? When were you in Syria last time?
The most recent time, I think I said, is 2019.
Okay.
But I was also 2018 and I was there when Trump bombed us. I was there in 2016. So now I am horrified to see that what was Syria, the essence of Syria, it had an elected government that protected minorities. That essence is being destroyed by foreigners from the international community, the Gulf monarchies, Al-Qaeda from countries throughout the world are there and destroying what was Syria, including its people, and imposing sectarianism and extremism. The root of this Wahhabism is Saudi Arabia, not Syria. And it's supported by Zionism, and it's supported by Washington. But they've done this. They do it in Yemen right now. They support Al-Qaeda. They did it in Libyan Islamic fighting group, okay? These so-called jihadis, and Jeffrey Sachs makes this very clear, The empire has been running these so-called jihadis for decades. They brought jihadis called mujahideen into Afghanistan. And they destroyed Afghanistan. They did that to bring the Soviets in, but it was a secular government that had that was, you know, women were advanced and were not they were educated and they were integrated into society and they were not persecuted as they are now.
But
Women now in Syria are being persecuted. It's terrible.
yeah, but since Syria, the Syrian government was this installed and elected and established and has been so old, it has really deep roots. Do you have some thoughts on how they manage this?
Well, the Syrian government, okay, so a NATO survey came out years ago. I don't have it on my hand, but it demonstrated the extreme popularity of the Assad government, okay? And it was an elected government, and it was extraordinarily popular and elected. The Al-Qaeda posing as a government now was not elected by anybody, okay? And Assad, he was highly educated. He was an eye doctor. He still is. I think a lot of Syrians now feel betrayed because he disappeared. I don't know exactly what happened to him. So I don't like to mind read, but I think they feel betrayed. But they're also scapegoating Assad for what empire has done. Empire likes to disassociate itself from the crimes that it commits. Empire imposed Caesar sanctions, unilateral coercive measures, which destroyed the economy. And they were illegal. Empire imposed Timber Sycamore, which funneled and other programs which funneled billions into the hands of terrorists. All of that's illegal. Empire occupied and still does resource-rich areas of Syria and steals the oil and ships it out.
Yeah.
And now Turkey is there also. So imperialists are vying for power in the carcass of Syria now. Turkey is illegally occupying now. Washington, which is leading from behind, is illegally occupying, has been for a long time. Now Zionists are very close to Damascus. All of this is according to plan. None of this is a mistake. Part of this ties in with the greater Israeli project. But I mean, the documentation is very clear. I just give you one example. This is from a leaked Pentagon report. Anyone can see this. It says the Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood, and AQI are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria. They're not even making a mistake about it. This is the opposition, AQI, Al-Qaeda. The West, listen to this, the West, Gulf countries, and Turkey support the opposition. That's Al-Qaeda. While Russia, China, and Iran support the regime. Well, it was an elected government is what it was. So there's all sorts of documentation here. James Sullivan, see last item, AQ is on our side in Syria. And then there's Wesley Clark. We're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. So none of this was a secret, but as Jeffrey Sachs notes, how many times did the New York Times mention Operation Timber Sycamore, which was one of the ways in which they funneled cash and weapons and arms and so on to the terrorists? About 3 times in maybe 11 years. So the mainstream, the legacy media is actually complicit in war crime, which is in the sense that it's war propaganda. And without this war propaganda, these wars would not be happening. But a lot of the arms came from Libya after the destruction of Libya, which was intentional. They came from the Libyan armories. They came from other spots. They came from Timber Sycamore. I hope I have something here. Anyway, you had another question. If I find it on... can I just read you this blurb I found on the internet about Timber Sycamore? Okay, just so I don't get it wrong. It says, Operation Timber Sycamore is the code name of a covert operation officially authorized by Obama in June 2013 to train and equip anti-Assad rebellion. but which actually started in October 2011 when the CIA was operating via Britain's MI6, sorry, to avoid having to notify Congress that it was arming the quote-unquote rebels in Syria. Originally, the CIA and MI6 set up a rebel arms supply network in Syria from Libya. They raided the Libya stockpiles as one benefit of destroying Libya. A plan that involved the Saudi, Qatari, and Turkish, and so on. So all of this is public, but the mainstream press hides it. They hide it and they keep it secret. They pretend it doesn't exist. And so the wars keep on continuing, you know, and they support Al-Qaeda in Yemen right now. Yemen is not doing anything wrong. They are abiding by international law to try to stop the genocide of Palestinians by the Western support of the Zionists.
Yeah, but this genocide happening on Alawites right now in Syria.
Yes.
Do you think the public in Syria knows about it?
Some people living on the coast, they can't leave their houses. They're afraid. Internet has been cut off. I've seen some disgusting photos, people losing their, being beheaded. I think maybe about 30,000 have been slaughtered. We're talking innocent civilians. They go into homes, they slaughter the people, and they steal the homes. They steal the properties. Why? They want to change the population, and they want to steal the properties. And that's part of the imperial plan of balkanization. Eva Bartlett, who's a very reliable source, and Dan Kovalik, they're putting the numbers around 30,000, maybe even higher, though. This is a genocide, and the West supports it.
Yes, do you have some personal sources reporting to you from Syria directly also?
Yes, and I'm not going to use their names because they aren't necessarily safe. I have a source living in that area. This person was presumably because of their religious designation, forced out of the job, can't leave the home, cannot go to the Russian air base to find safety and refuge because if there's checkpoints apparently, so if this person were to be stopped, he or she would risk being beheaded. It's that bad.
Yeah.
But do the rest of Syria know this? I don't know, because the West controls the media. You see, remember with all these USAID leaks, they show how much of the media is controlled in Ukraine by USAID, by the West, most of it. The similar scenario is devolved in Syria, where the West and the Al-Qaeda extremist sources control the media. So does everyone in Syria know what's happening? That I do not know. I do not know.
All right, but Mark, since I know you are short on time, I think we should call it here. But thank you a lot for your thoughts. And
thank you very much.
Yes, and
thank you.
Maybe talk to you another day again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.